because he had very limited time, and he's seen perspective came into his life more, obviously, when he was diagnosed with cancer. Possibly one of my favorite books, and it's quite emotional. I'll go out on a limb, and I'm not one that really gets emotional about things. I say there was a lump in my throat when I read this. The big thing I say is, like, you gotta win the morning.
Heavy requirements on them to lift heavy weights.
The conversation has to be changed.
What you truly value.
No right way and there's no wrong way.
Become the source of struggle.
I kept finding myself in tears from the physical pain.
You're listening to the Stephen Kinsella Podcast. Hey guys, welcome to the show. I'm your host, Stephen Kinsella, and this is episode 46, and I'm doing a quick little review of some books. So, behind me you can see an awful lot of books. I'll be honest, I probably haven't read most of them. I've probably listened to the audiobook. I never really liked to read. When I was a kid, I always found it hard to read, and I believe that the first time I actually read a full book was The Way of the Peaceful Warrior by Dan Millman. I was in college at the time, and it was the first time I read something that actually gripped my attention to the point, I think it was 18, 19, to the point where I read the full thing and I was engrossed in it. And that was when I started to realize that I can enjoy books. I just need to find the right books. I've read a lot of books over the years, but I suppose over the last, say, 4 or 5 years, I've kind of gotten into just listening to a lot of audiobooks because it's just easier when you're in the car, and if you're just doing some mundane tasks in the office, you can just stick on an audiobook, which is absolutely fine, or you're doing some stuff around the house. So today I'm just going to go through 5 books. These aren't my 5 all-time favorites. Some of them are, and they'd be definitely all in the top 10. But these are 5 books that I think that if you wanted to look at either having some personal growth, a kind of a better understanding about things, and if you have a family, how to kind of navigate that, or with kids, these would probably be my favorite books. So starting off with book number 1 is David Goggins' Can't Hurt Me. He has 2 books. He's this one and then Unfinished. Both of them are amazing books. David Goggins is a former Navy SEAL, Army Ranger, ultra marathon runner, smoke jumper, the pull-up challenge. He's done pretty much every extreme endurance challenge that you can do, and he is an all-around badass. What I like about this book is that it's not just a rah-rah book of how you just do things and all of his achievements. It's also about the adversity that he's gone through. And I think partly the adversity he went through is what created the mindset for him to do what he needs to do. But at one point of his life, he ended up very, very overweight, was living a very unhealthy lifestyle, and just one day literally flipped a switch, I've had enough, and then went after becoming a Navy SEAL. And that was the start of his journey. But the beauty of this book, so the book is a really good book, but what happens is if you get the audiobook as well, they do a podcast, a little mini interview with David at the end of every chapter. And I've never really seen that done before in a book or an audiobook. So it gives you a better insight into the chapter and what was going on in David's head at the time. And it's really, really good. So I would recommend the audiobook. The book's amazing, but I recommend the audiobook as well because it just gives you a better insight into it. It also, it's kind of, one of the things is that it's like you can do an awful lot. Like David Goggins just doesn't run marathons. He studies, he works, he's constantly doing things on top of all the other stuff. And he just doesn't believe in excuses. But he also explains that he has a heart as well. He has multiple injuries and he overcomes them. He has to work. He trains around his work. He does everything. So it's pretty much, it's one of those things. If he can do what he's doing, then you can do a little bit of something to make yourself fitter and healthier. So definitely one of the top books I would recommend you reading. Even if you listen to any of his podcasts on like Joe Rogan or Chris Williamson, definitely you'll understand more about him. And I find him quite inspiring especially for people that would procrastinate about doing stuff, and I've done that multiple times in my life. It's definitely one of those books. So David Goggins, You Can't Hurt Me, definitely in the list. Number 2, just kind of a trend with these books, I suppose, is Joe DeSena's 10 Rules for Resilience. It's about cultivating a great family and kind of educating your family and your kids on how to literally live the best life that you can. I like this book a lot. I've listened to Joe's podcasts and I've read his other books like Spartan Up. I like the discipline that comes with it. It's also co-wrote by Dr. Lara Spence, who is on the podcast a few episodes back, so you can check that out. The purpose of the book is to help parents navigate being parents, and that the real goal is not to be your child's friend, it's to raise good children. He has 10 rules. Some of them, again, you might find are slightly extreme or you wouldn't do that, but if you even take some of it away from it, like getting your kids to exercise more, leading by example by being fit and healthy yourself. So that is the common theme, is a lot of parents would not be fit and healthy but then expect their kids to be fit and healthy. And it is literally monkey see, monkey do. You are their role model. So if you mimic something, if you do something, if you act and live a certain way, your kids are more than likely to fall in line and start living like that. That's the way it works. And I think it's a really good lesson. There's 10, as I said, there's 10 really good lessons in that book. Definitely worth to try. I've listened to it 3 times in audiobook and I've read it once. Absolutely amazing. Even my wife read it and she's been sharing it with her friends. So definitely a really good book to use. We don't enforce all the rules, but some of them, as our kids get older, we'll be able to introduce as well. So number 2. Number 3 is The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. I think it's pronounced slightly different. The Alchemist is the second book I read after The Way of the Peaceful Warrior. It's about a boy from Spain. His name is Santiago, and he has these visions to go and seek his fortune and his treasure. And he upsticks and he goes to Africa and goes through a bunch of different life's trials where he ends up poor and broke and he has to work and he gets robbed and then he makes money and he saves people and he falls in love. And the purpose of this book is it's a fictional story, but it has a lot of good life lessons in it. And I suppose the purpose of it, The Alchemist, is a guy in the book who teaches Santiago that you want to live your life's purpose, you want to find your life's purpose. And an alchemist, in this book, he turns any kind of material into gold and helps that material live its life purpose. And what happens to Santiago is that he goes through all these trials and tribulations and ups and downs and finds love and has loss. And through the book, what happens is you realize that living your life's purpose requires you to live your life. I find that quite profound. So to find the love, to find the treasure, which he thought was actual treasure, and there is treasure in the book, and like he does win, but he also loses with money and stuff he finds, is that the true representation of living your life's purpose is to live your life. And don't just settle, and find what you want to be and go after it. I thought that was a very good book. He has, I don't know how many books this guy has, there's loads of them, but definitely top 5, if not top 10. Possibly, definitely top 3 books. Jocko Willink, The Way of the Warrior Kid. Another Navy SEAL. Jocko Willink is written a lot of books for adults, but then he started a kid series. Mikey, The Way of the Warrior Kid is the first in a book of 5, but he did write another book for junior kids, which is called Mikey and the Dragon, which is the first book we read with my son. I've personally read this book and I've listened to the audiobook, and then I've read it with my son. And when he's older, he'll read it himself. So the book is about a boy called Mark in the 10th grade, which is, for us here in Ireland, is a kid that's 10, 11 years of age. And he's an okay kid. He's not a bad kid, but like he wouldn't be the most talented, doesn't really know his times tables, makes mistakes. He's not super fit. And he gets bullied by a kid called Kenny Williamson. So he's not really enjoying school as much. He has friends, but again, there's a few things that he doesn't know. And he kind of, he doesn't do things because he doesn't put work in. So what happens is Uncle Jake, who comes to stay with him, Uncle Jake is in the army, he's a Navy SEAL, and he teaches Mark to become fitter and to become stronger and to be able to handle a bully, to defend himself and defend others. And through the course of the book, Mark learns to do pull-ups and push-ups, get fitter, he's able to climb ropes, he's able to defend himself from bullies, which he does in the book, but then also befriend the bully. So a bully is only bully for a reason, so they figured that out. And then he designs what's called the Warrior Kid Code, and he gets people, Kenny joins the Warrior Kid Code, and how to just kids to be good kids, be fit kids, be strong kids, mentally, physically. And what I took away from this book is, well, the best part of this book is when we finished it with my son wanted to do a pull-up. He could kind of do one, so we got him a pull-up bar, and I said, like, if you're doing this, we do it like Uncle Jake does it, and Mark does it. And within 6 weeks, he went from doing barely one to getting 10 pull-ups in a row, but he did them every day. He now does pull-ups and push-ups every day. We don't really have to talk to him about it. He just does it. But also, he's learning his times tables, which he doesn't have to learn yet in school. But when they do learn it in school, he will be ready and he will know them. And the beauty of it is that it's not getting your kid up at the crack of dawn with a bucket of cold water and then making them exercise and study. It's little things. So it takes about 2 to 3 minutes for Jody to do his exercise in the morning, and he spends about 5 minutes on his times tables during the summer, and he's learning it. So it's just the compounding interest, the compounding effort that he's putting in. He sees the results 6-8 weeks down the road, which is quite good. So like if your child is struggling, or if you're finding that your child needs help with something, it doesn't take a huge amount of work. It just takes small amounts of consistent work to help them, because they're kids. They don't need to be doing all of that all the time. They just need to have little aspects of it on a daily basis or every second day. And I think this book, and then all the books that come after it, I think there's 5 books, absolutely amazing for kids to read. It's a must for read. Even in our kids camps, one of the years we gave away, I think, like 12 of these books. We bought 12 of these books to give away to kids that we felt that were excelling in class. So definitely a book to read, even for your own, for yourself. So the last book that I have, and I know I reviewed this one before, is Randy Pouch's The Last Lecture. So this book, firstly, it's a true story. It's amazing. It's about a guy's life, and the last lecture is something that professors get to do when they're retiring and get to impart their wisdom. So the whole point is, if you only have one more lecture to do, what would it be on, and how would you impact the people, the world? And this was actually Randy's last lecture, because he was diagnosed with terminal cancer. And what he goes through with the book is how to live your dreams. There's some rules in there on how to go after your dreams, and pretty much how to navigate life and just go after being you, going after being the person you want to be. And his whole thing was to live a really good life for his kids, because he had very limited time, and he's seen perspective came into his life more, obviously, when he was diagnosed with cancer. Possibly one of my favorite books, and it's quite emotional. I'll go out on a limb, and I'm not one that really gets emotional about things. I say there was a lump in my throat when I read this, because it's such a deep, impactful, meaningful book that will help you realize that we, again, and a lot of books do this, we focus on kind of materialistic things a lot, and this kind of brings it home to what's really important about you and living your life, and if you have kids and you have a wife, how to be there for them. So that is definitely another amazing book. So guys, that is my 5 books. I would, if I was a parent, if you're a parent and you're listening to this, I would definitely go with the Joe DeSena book, and with your kids, The Way to Warrior Kid. I definitely go with those books. If you're just watching this in any way, any of those books to start off with is amazing. You can see there's a theme there about being physically stronger, mentally stronger, pushing yourself, testing yourself, trying to find who your true person is, being a good human, if you're a parent, being a role model for your kids, and having an amazing family, or trying to create the best family that you can. Like, these are things that like you always want to be. I don't know anyone that doesn't want to be better for their kids. I don't know anyone that doesn't want to be better for their wife. I don't know anyone that doesn't want to be better in themselves. And these are not self-help books. That's what I like. They're not like, here, this is what you need to do. This is just some guidance and stories on how to be better. I know it kind of sounds, well, it is a self-help book, but it's not wishy-washy. It's practical information. And for some of it, it's real life stories that have happened. So guys, that is today's show. If you like it, please give us a like, comment below your favorite book, subscribe to the channel. It helps the algorithm, helps YouTube know that people want to watch it. And I will see you on the next show.
The big thing I say is, like, you got to win the morning.
Heavy requirements on them to lift heavy weights.
The conversation has to be changed.
What you truly value.
No right way and there's no wrong way.
Become the source of struggle.
I kept finding myself in tears from the physical pain.
You're listening to the Stephen Kinsler Podcast.